Patrick in Fort Worth, Texas. You wanted to talk about same-sex marriage?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Mr. Hartman. Actually, I've got a couple different questions. I just realized. First, I want to ask you. I'm not real familiar. This is actually the first time I've strolled across your program here. Are you of Jewish descent?
No.
You are not. Okay. Well, my first I guess comment about same-sex marriage. I'm obviously I'm in Texas, so I guess the natural assumption would be that I'm of conservative beliefs. So that's kind of a stigma.
At least 40% of your state is Democratic and progressive.
Yeah, well, I'm not a Democrat, nor am I progressive, nor am I conservative, and nor am I a Republican. I consider myself to be a constitutionalist. Now, whenever we're talking about same-sex marriage, I don't personally see. I think it's unconstitutional to deny all the legal rights that a married man and woman have to a union between two men. If two men want to have a legal union,
or two women,
where every right through the state is recognized equally to a man and woman's marriage, that is the exact route that we need to go. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem with this is and I don't want to quote a Southern Baptist pastor or whatever. There was a pastor I was listening to. I listened to all the channels. Jeffers, a guy out of Dallas. But he was saying, the Constitution doesn't guarantee us marriage anywhere. Doesn't speak of marriage as a right. In our Bill of Rights, none of that. So marriage in essence is something that has derived from religion. Now,
Patrick, no, it's not true. Let me start. You're building up a series of logical fallacies, and you're trying to take them to some ultimate logical fallacy, and I got to stop you. First of all, marriage is what we're talking about here. When we're talking about state-sanctioned marriage, it's a contract. It is all about contract law, and marriage did not start out as a religious thing. If you go back and look at the history of marriage, going back to Samaria, marriage started out as an ownership thing. It was how men owned women and their children, and I mean, this was. If I had the time, I'd grab my own book, Equal Protection and Unequal Protection, and read to you the status of women in the United States up until the 1920s. A woman could not execute a will without a man co-signing it. If her husband died, a man had to be assigned to the woman to determine what would happen to her children. She had no say in what religion they were raised in. She could not own property. She could not execute contracts. I mean, marriage was about ownership, and it's about shared, and now it's more about shared ownership of things. So, I mean, yeah, there's a religious institution of marriage, and I have no problem if the Catholic Church says, hey, if you're Jewish, you can't get married in our church, or if a Jewish synagogue says, hey, if you're a Catholic, don't come here to get married, regardless of whether you're straight or gay or whatever. That's the prerogative of a church. But if we're talking about the legal rights, that's that should have nothing to do with what anybody thinks some God says.
Yeah, and I understand that. But here's what I'm saying. If it's such a big deal to and to me it really is. I'll be honest, I could care less one way or another, but I see both sides of the argument. There are people I'll say this, I've studied the Quran, I've studied, philosophy, I've studied, my grandfather's, got his doctorate in theology, so I was raised with this my whole life, and it was crammed down my throat, and I understand, but what I can say is Christians, for the most part, are a passive religion. They have strong, firm beliefs in what they believe, and you don't find them, I mean, in comparison to some other world religions, we could say, very accepting and moderate in comparison to what the beliefs of other religions are. And I'm not calling out Islam, but I'm just saying. Now, with that said, is it that big of a deal? I mean, if I was a gay guy, I'll be honest with you, Thom, dealing with women, sometimes I wish I was gay. I get along with guys a whole lot better than I do women for the most part. But, if I was a gay guy, and the state was like, look, we're going to call it a civil union just to make these guys happy. But guess what? You're going to be able to have all the same tax breaks. You're going to be able to have the power of attorney. You're going to have all these. It's going to.
Yeah, Vermont tried that, Patrick. It's an insult. It's like saying, yeah, you can have a drink from the water fountain. Just use the one that's marked coloreds only.
I get that, but here's my argument with that. A black man and a white man. Underneath our skin, we are exactly the same.
Yep.
A man and a woman, under their skin, they're not exactly the same. It doesn't apply, and I get what you're saying, but it is completely, it's more of a slap in the face and an insult to the Christian or to Christians than it is to
I think it's a slap in the face to bigots.
I'm not a bigot by any means. I don't consider myself to be a bigot at
all. Well, then how is it a slap in your face if
it's not a slap in my face? I'm not speaking for me.
Okay.
I'm playing devil's advocate.
Speak for yourself, Patrick.
Well, for myself, I here's the thing. I understand both sides of the argument. But see, here's the thing about,
the bigot side and the not bigot side.
It's not being a bigot, Thom. It's not being a bigot. It's people that have this firm belief that homosexuality is a sexual immorality.
I know. They're just like the people who in the 1950s and 1960s believed that it was fundamentally immoral for a black man and a white woman or a black woman and a white man to get married. And it was illegal in about half the states in the United States.
You cannot compare those two things.
Of course I can. When Barack Obama was born, if his parents had been living in Virginia, they would have been arrested.
Look, I understand your point, and you have a point. And I'm not negating that argument. I'm not.
And it's based on, by the way, and that doctrine was based on the Bible. I mean, this is this pitch that has been put on for years and years and years. It's about our tribe, or even the real stretch that the Mormons have that dark skin is the mark of Cain, and therefore you're supposed to identify people and trash them the way you would Cain. I mean, it's bizarre stuff, Patrick. Patrick, we're out of time. Thanks a lot for the call.